My name isn't important, mostly because around here names get reused. You can be a junior and a third, and still end up buried in the same family plot as the guy you were named after. You can marry into a last name like it's a coat off the rack. You can lose a name completely if you rack up enough unpaid bills and bounce between counties. What matters is that I've been pulling dead cars out of Appalachian ditches since I was 19. And I can tell the difference between bad luck and something that wants you on purpose. I run a single wrecker out of a gravel lot behind a closed-down tire shop. Hand-painted sign out front, one bay that leaks when it rains. A coffee pot that tastes like old pennies. If you've ever driven these roads, you know the kind of place. Not official, but necessary. Everybody in town has my number saved under some version of tow, and everybody swears they'll pay me Friday. Most Fridays don't come. That night started normal. Which is to say, it started with me trying to make $1 stretch into $2. ID spent the day doing the usual. A Subaru that kissed the guardrail too hard. A farm truck with a cooked transmission. One repo job for a finance company that pretends it isn't predatory. Because the guy on the phone says, "Sir." A lot. Around 10:30 I was back at the lot, wiping grease off my hands with a rag that had long ago accepted its fate. I was thinking about heading home, maybe eating something that didn't come in a wrapper, when my phone rang. Unknown number. I don't answer unknown numbers anymore. Not after the last time I did and got screamed at by a woman who swore I had stolen her husband's truck. I had to drive 15 miles at midnight just to prove the thing wasn't even in my yard. So I let it ring once, twice. Then it rang again immediately, like whoever it was had hit radio without breathing. That's what got me, not the persistence. The pattern dispatchers do that. They call, you miss it. They call back right away, because they're juggling 5 fires, and you're the closest extinguisher. It becomes muscle memory. Ring, ring. Hang up. Ring again. Your brain hears it, and your thumb moves before your pride does, I answered. Tow service. Silence for half a second. Then a voice I didn't recognize tried to sound like a person who had the authority to make my night miserable. Unit 12. Nobody calls me Unit 12. I'm not a unit. I'm a guy with a truck and a loan payment. You've got the wrong number. You're the only wrecker within range, the voice said. Male, not old, not young. Flat, like he was reading off a card but trying to make it casual. Need a pickup, cash call. Cash calls have their own gravity. You can feel the word cash tug at your decision making like a hook in the cheek. What's the location? He gave me coordinates first. Actual coordinates then. Like he realized I might not bite. He added a road named Locals, still used even though it's not on half the maps. Old Slate Cutoff. My hand tightened on the phone. Old Slate Cutoff is one of those little roads that exists. Because something had to connect 2 places in 1938. And nobody cared if it stayed safe. It winds along a ridge where the trees lean like eavesdroppers. If you miss a turn, you don't just end up lost, you end up below the turn. Upside down, waiting for someone to smell gasoline. I've pulled cars out of there before, but not often. People either know better, or they don't come back to tell anybody. What's the vehicle? I asked. Another tiny pause then. Sedan, make. Doesn't matter, it's in the roadway, hazard. Tow it to your yard. That should have been the end of it. That should have been the point where I said, call county, and hung up. Because if Teresa hazard on a public road, Teresa protocol. Sheriff's department, highway guys. Somebody with lights that get paid by taxes. But before I could speak, the voice added something else, like an afterthought. Don't look at the plates, he said. Just hook it. I laughed once, the wrong kind of laugh. The kind you do when you want the world to admit it's joking. What? Don't look at the plates, he repeated more firmly. We're trying to keep this clean. You'll be compensated. 1,000 cash on drop. $1,000 would pay my insurance for 2 months. It would fix the winch motor I'd been coaxing along with prayer and percussive maintenance. It would keep my lights on through the end of the week. It would also buy me into somebody else's problem. I stared out at my empty lot. Fog had started to creep in from the creek line behind the tire shop, crawling over the gravel like it owned the place. My truck sat there under the security light, with bugs orbiting the bulb, Everything looked normal, but my stomach didn't feel normal. "Who is this?" I asked. "Doesn't matter," the voice said again. Like "doesn't matter" was a tool he used to sand down questions. "You want the job or not?" I should have said no. I said, "Text me the pin." My phone buzzed a second later with a message. No name, no company logo. Just coordinates in one more line of text. "Hook it. Do not open it. Do not check the trunk." I read it twice. Then a third time, slower, like the words might rearrange into something more reasonable. I typed back, "Whose car is it?" 3 dots appeared, like he was typing. Then the dots vanished. No response. I stood there for a full minute with the phone in my hand, listening to the quiet. Not the peaceful kind. The kind where you notice all the little sounds that are always there, your own breathing. A distant dog barking, the faint tick of hot metal cooling down. I told myself it was a repo crew trying to stay off the books. I told myself it was a drunk county worker who didn't want paperwork. I told myself it was nothing. And then I did what I always do when the bills are louder than my instincts. I grabbed my keys. My truck is an old rollback with a faded company name on the door, and a bed that groans like it's tired of carrying other people's mistakes. The cab smells like coffee, diesel, and the ghost of cigarettes I quit 2 years ago. I climbed in, turned the key, and watched the dashboard lights blink awake like sleepy eyes. For a second the radio tried to come on, then I killed it. "Don't look at the plates, just hook it." I backed out of the lot, tires crunching gravel. As I turned onto the main road, I glanced at my phone mounted on the dash. No service bars, not unusual up in the hills, but still annoying. I drove anyway. The town thinned out fast, as it always does. 1 minute you've got porch lights and chain link fences. The next you've got black tree lines, and the suggestion of houses set back in the dark where you can't see the windows. Old Slate Cutoff came up like a bad memory. No streetlight, no sign you'd trust, just a narrow mouth of asphalt splitting off the main road, flanked by 2 leaning pines and a guardrail that started strong, and then gave up. I turned in. My headlights washed over wet pavement. The road climbed, twisted, then dipped through a hollow where fog pooled thick enough to feel like it wanted to coat your tongue. I kept going, slower than I wanted to, my hands locked at 10 and 2, like my driver's ed instructor could still see me. A mile in, the woods got denser. The air got colder. My windshield started to mist from the inside even though my heater was running. Then, around a bend, my high beams hit something that made my foot slam the brake without permission. A car, right in the middle of the road. Not half in a ditch, not nosed into a tree, not crumpled, not smoking. Just sitting there perfectly centered, like someone had parked it and walked away. It was a sedan, sure, but it didn't look like any sedan I'd seen on these roads. It was too clean. The paint dark, maybe black or deep blue, reflected my headlights like water. No dents. No mud. No cracked taillights. No reason it should be dead on a back road at midnight. My truck idled, diesel grumbling. I sat there staring at it, and the first thought that slid into my mind wasn't fear. It was annoyance. Because if it's that clean, it's going to be somebody's pride and joy, which means they're going to scream at me when I drag it wrong. I put the truck in park and grabbed my flashlight. As soon as I opened the door, the cold hit me like stepping into a freezer aisle. The air smelled wrong, not smoke. Not rot, something dry and metallic, like a handful of pennies warmed in a fist. My boots hit the pavement and the sound didn't carry like it should. The woods felt padded, muffled. I walked toward the sedan. No hazard lights. No interior light. Windows tinted too dark to see inside. I aimed the flashlight beam at the driver's seat. Nothing. Then I noticed something that made me slow down. The tires were clean too, not recently washed. Clean like they had never been on this road. No gravel dust packed into the treads. No mud flecks. No leaf smear. It looked like the car had been set down here like a toy. I stopped a few feet from the rear bumper, and my light fell on the license plate. My brain hesitated, because I remembered the voice. Don't look at the plates. I don't know why that line mattered so much in that moment. I've seen stolen plates, fake tags, dealer plates, cardboard temp tags, flapping in the wind. A plate is a plate, but my pulse kicked up anyway. I told myself I wasn't looking. I was just noticing. The plate was there, but it didn't have a state. No county, no registration sticker, just letters. Not random letters, not vanity, not anything that fit the usual patterns. They were arranged too neatly, like a word I almost recognized, but couldn't pronounce. My eyes tried to make sense of it, and my head started to ache, like my brain was pushing against a door that wouldn't open. I blinked hard and looked away. The ache didn't fade right away. A thin sound drifted up the road behind me soft, like metal moving against pavement. Not an engine, not footsteps. A dragging sound. Chain drag. And I hadn't even dropped my chains yet. I swung my flashlight up the road. Nothing but fog and trees. The dragging sound stopped. I swallowed, suddenly aware of how alone I was out there. Suddenly aware of how the sedan looked less like a stranded vehicle, and more like an object placed as a test. I backed up toward my truck, never taking my light off the road behind me for more than a second. When I reached my rollback controls, my hands were shaking enough that I had to steady them on the metal panel. Just hook it, I muttered to myself. Get paid. Go home. I started lowering the bed. The hydraulics whined, loud in the quiet. The bed tilted down toward the pavement with a clank that echoed off the trees. And that's when the sedan's interior light flicked on. Just for a second, a pale, sickly glow behind the tinted glass. I froze with my hand on the lever. The light went out again. I stared at the driver's side window and realized my reflection was the only thing I could clearly see, except maybe something behind it. Not a person, not a silhouette, more like a shape pressed close to the glass, the way a blanket looks when someone underneath it shifts. My throat went dry. The dragging sound started again. This time, closer. I should have gotten back in my truck and left. I don't mean I should have called the sheriff left. I mean I should have put the rollback bed back up, turned around on that narrow strip of road like an idiot doing a 30-point turn, and accepted the embarrassment of telling whoever called me that I wasn't touching it. But $1,000 is $1,000, and pride is a strange kind of handcuff. I was already there, ID already driven out. ID already looked at the plate even though I told myself I hadn't, so I did what tow drivers do. I focused on the steps, bed down, winch free, hook points neutral. Break the job into actions small enough that your brain doesn't have room for the bigger question. Why does it feel like the woods are holding their breath? The chain drag noise stopped a second. I touched the winch cable. Not gradually, like something walking away instantly. Like someone let go of a recording. That should have been my sign. I walked toward the sedan again. Cable in one hand, flashlight in the other. I kept the beam off the plate this time. Forced myself to look at the rear axle, the undercarriage, the tire angle. Anything but those letters. The closer I got, the colder it felt. My breath fogged in front of my face, and the fog didn't drift like normal, it clung. I reached the trunk seam and paused. The car was still, but not the way a dead car is still. A dead car is an object. This felt like an animal pretending to be an object. The sedan's paint was so glossy I could see my face in it, warped and pale under the flashlight. I looked tired, hollow, like I'd already been out here too long. I crouched and tried to find a safe place to attach my hook. The metal under the bumper looked new, too new. No rust, no road grime, no little scars. It was factory perfect in a way that didn't fit the mountains. Even brand new cars get dirty in these hollers. I looped the chain anyway and went to cinch it tight. My gloves squeaked on the metal like I was rubbing glass. As I pulled the chain, the sedan shifted, just a fraction of an inch, like a car settling. But it shifted sideways. Cars don't do that unless you're on ice or a steep angle, and we were on dry pavement. I stopped with the chain half secured, waiting for it to roll back into place. It didn't. The car was now slightly off-center in the road, like it had corrected itself away from my touch. The chain in my hands felt suddenly heavier, as if it was being tugged, Not enough to yank me forward, just enough to make my forearms tense. I stood up slowly, cable still looped, and aimed my flashlight at the driver's side window again. Nothing. Just tint. Then the interior light flickered on again, but this time it stayed on. The glow was dim, like a dying phone screen, and I could see what was inside. Not clearly, but enough. The seats were wrong, not torn or bloody. Wrong in shape, like the leather had been stretched over something that wasn't meant to be upholstered. The headrests bulged. The back seat had a sag in the middle, as if something heavy had been sitting there for a long time. There was also something on the dashboard, a piece of paper folded into a neat rectangle, held down by what looked like a small stone. A note. My first thought was relief. Notes make things human. Notes mean somebody was here and left a message, and maybe the whole thing had an explanation. My second thought was that the caller had told me not to open anything. He hadn't said anything about reading. I walked around to the driver's door and tried the handle. It opened easily, like it had been unlocked the whole time. The smell that came out of the car made me gag. Dry metal, old cloth, and something else that reminded me of a church basement dusty, hymnals, and cold stone, and the faintest hint of formaldehyde. I leaned in, keeping my boots planted outside, and aimed my flashlight at the paper on the dash. It was an envelope. No stamp, no return address, just words in thick black ink. To the next driver. The handwriting was steady, not frantic. Whoever wrote it had taken their time. My mouth felt numb. I reached in and picked up the envelope. It was cold. Not. Left in the car overnight, cold. Cold like it had been in a freezer. The paper felt stiff. I flipped it over. The flap wasn't sealed with glue. It was sealed with something darker, like wax. Except it wasn't shiny. It looked dried. I should have dropped it. Instead, I slid my thumbnail under the flap and opened it. Inside was a single folded sheet of paper. No letterhead. No logo. Just that same thick handwriting. I unfolded it under my flashlight beam and started to read. Rule 1. Do not call anyone from the pickup site. No dispatch. No family. No friends. If you have to talk to yourself, I swallowed. I'd already broken that one by answering the call in the first place, but maybe it meant calling out from here, from this road. Rule 2. Do not look at the license plate. If you already did, do not try to remember it. Do not write it down. My eyes stung like they wanted to water. I realized, with a sudden wave of nausea, that my brain had already started replaying the plate letters on a loop. Not consciously, like a tune stuck in your head. I forced myself to think of something else. A grocery list. A stupid jingle. Anything. Rule 3. Keep your headlights on low beam while loading. High beams wake it up. I glanced at my truck. ID had the brights on when I first stopped. The thought made my stomach drop. Rule 4. Do not open the trunk. Do not check the glove box. Do not look under the seats. This is not your car. It is not empty. I stared at the line until the words blurred. It is not empty. Rule 5. Once the vehicle is on your bed. Do not let it touch the ground again until you reach your yard. Rule 6. Do not use the radio. If the radio turns on by itself, do not turn it off. Do not respond. Let it finish. Rule 7. If you hear the sound of chain dragging behind you while you are driving, do not brake. Do not pull over. Do not check your mirrors. Keep going until you reach a church or a graveyard. My hands tightened around the paper. Church or graveyard. Like those were safe places. Rule 8. If you pass a church with a lit sign that reads "Welcome Home," you have missed your turn. Keep driving. Do not go back. Rule 9. If you see a person on the road waving you down, do not stop. If they are barefoot, do not slow down. Rule 10. Do not tow the car past the county line. I reread that one twice. That didn't make sense. My yard was across the county line. Technically, I work 2 counties depending on calls. Everybody does out here. Lines on a map mean nothing to the mountains. Rule 11. If the car's interior light comes on, do not look inside. Too late. Rule 12. If you feel tired, do not yawn. If you yawn, count your teeth with your tongue. That one made my skin crawl in a way the others hadn't. It was too specific, too intimate. Rule 13, when you arrive at your yard, do not park it near other vehicles. Leave it alone in the far gravel lot. Do not unhook it until morning. Rule 14, if you find this list, it means the last driver didn't finish the job. Don't be like him. Below that, a final line had been written, then scratched out so hard the paper was almost torn. Rule 15. If it asks for the sentence ended in gouged ink, my throat tightened. I looked up from the paper and realized something I hadn't noticed before. The inside of the sedan door had no controls, no window buttons, no lock switch, no handle where it should have been. Just smooth molded plastic, like the car was designed so you could get in, but not get out. A cold draft brushed the back of my neck, not wind breath. I spun around, flashlight snapping toward the tree line behind me. Fog leaves, darkness, and then, from somewhere up the road, the chain drag sound started again. But this time it wasn't behind me. It was coming from the direction I needed to drive, as if the road ahead was being measured, as if something out there was pulling metal across pavement slowly, patiently making sure I heard it. I backed away from the open driver's door and shut it hard. The latch clicked. Too loud, my truck sat behind me like a lifeline. The rollback bed was down, ready. I looked at the list again. Then at the sedan, and I made a decision that felt less like bravery and more like choosing which way to fall. I was going to hook it and get it to my yard, and I was going to do it without breaking another rule. I walked back to my truck and flipped my headlights down to low beam. The wood seemed to exhale. The interior light in the sedan went out. I didn't feel better. I felt like something had simply noticed I was trying to behave. I climbed into the cab, lowered the bed the last few inches, and started the winch. The cable spooled out with a soft metallic whine. I guided it toward the sedan's front tow point, keeping my eyes on the ground and the wheels in anywhere but the plate. When I crouched to attach the hook to the sedan's frame, my fingers brushed something tucked just behind the grille. Another envelope, smaller, like it had been shoved there in a hurry. My first instinct was to ignore it. My second instinct, stronger, was that ignoring things is how people die in these stories. I pulled it free, stood, and opened it with shaking hands. There was only one sentence inside. You are not the first one tonight. I read it twice. Then I heard an engine behind me. A car had turned onto Old Slate Cutoff, headlights off, rolling forward in the dark, like it didn't need to see. And even over the idle of my truck, I could hear it clearly, chain dragging. My hands went numb so fast I almost dropped the note. I stood there between my rollback and that too clean sedan, staring down the road I'd just come from. The fog had thickened into a soft gray wall, but through it I could make out a pair of headlights that weren't quite headlights, two pale ovals moving forward without casting beams. No engine noise, no gravel crunch, no tire hiss on wet pavement, just that slow, deliberate scrape of metal dragging behind it. I forced my eyes away before my brain could start assigning shape and intention to it. Rule 7, do not brake. Do not check your mirrors. That rule was for later, when I was driving. Right now I was standing still, and everything in me wanted to run to my cab and slam the lock, like a lock matters against things that don't respect doors. But another rule floated up, the one that sounded almost stupid until you're living it. Do not call anyone from the pickup site. Talk to yourself if you have to. So I did. Okay, I whispered into the cold. Okay, you hook. You load. You go. I kept my back to the fog and crouched by the sedan's front end, feeling around under the bumper until I found a solid tow point. I clipped the winch hook on, yanked it to make sure it seated, then snapped the safety latch shut with my thumb. The metal felt colder than it should, like it had been sitting in ice water. I didn't give myself time to think about why. I walked too fast back to the control panel and hit the winch. The cable tightened with a groan and the sedan lurched forward. Not rolled, lurched, like it resisted the first inch and then decided to cooperate. The front tires turned slightly on their own, aligning dead straight with the center of my bed. I hadn't touched the steering wheel. The driver's door was shut. The interior had no controls anyway. The sedan crawled up the incline of my tilted bed, smooth as a casket sliding into a hearse. Behind me, the chain dragging kept coming, closer now, a patient metronome. Scrape, 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 scrape. I didn't turn around. I didn't even let my flashlight drift toward the fog. I watched the sedan's tires climb the bed rollers. I watched the winch cable coil tighter. I watched the hood rise into the glow of my truck's low beams. When the sedan's front tires crossed the pivot point, the whole vehicle shifted. And for a second, the weight changed, the hydraulics whining in protest. My rollback bed creaked like it didn't trust what it was holding. The sedan reached the sweet spot and settled. I hit the winch stop. For a beat, the night went quieter than it had any right to. Then the sedan's interior light clicked on again. Rule 11. If the car's interior light comes on, do not look inside. I stared at my boots until the light, peripheral and pale, faded back off. My mouth tasted like copper. I moved on to the chains. Tow drivers don't just rely on winches. Winches fail. Cables snap. People sue. You chain it down like you're expecting the world to try to rip it away from you. I threw my first chain over the front wheel. The chain didn't fall right. It slid sideways across the tire, like something under the chain was repelling it. My first instinct was to adjust, to pull it into place. Instead, I remembered Rule 3. High beams wake it up. What did low beams do? Keep it sleepy. I didn't want to wake anything. So I did what I do when I'm dealing with a stubborn load. I let the chain rest where it wanted, then slowly coaxed it into position with small, careful motions. No yanking, no banging metal, no swearing. The chain finally seated around the tire and I tightened the binder. The ratchet clicked, loud in the quiet. Every click made me flinch. Behind me, the chain drag sound stopped. Not like it moved away, like it had arrived. The hair on my arms rose under my jacket. I finished the binder without looking up. I moved to the other side, chain over the rear axle, binder tight. By the time I had all 4 points secured, my hands were shaking so badly the last binder took 2 tries to lock. I stood there breathing hard and forced myself to take inventory. Sedan loaded, winch cable locked, safety chains on, rollback bed still down. I needed to raise the bed, retract it, and get in the cab, and that meant walking around the back of my truck. Tow drivers do that without thinking. We walk behind our rigs all night long, but now it felt like stepping into the blind spot of an animal. I told myself I wasn't alone. The sedan was with me on the bed, like some expensive hostage. That thought didn't comfort me, it made it worse. I moved around the rear of the truck in one quick arc, never stopping. I didn't look toward the fog. I didn't look down the road. I kept my eyes on the hydraulic controls and raised the bed. The rollback lifted with a heavy groan. The bed slid forward and locked into travel position with a deep metallic thunk that echoed through the trees. A second later, something answered. Not a voice. A sound like a long inhale drawn through a narrow throat. It came from the fog behind me. Close enough that my body reacted before my mind did. I sprinted to the cab. I swung the door open, climbed in, and slammed it shut with both hands. Then I locked it again. Locks are for people. But I did it anyway. My truck's interior smelled like diesel, and old coffee, and the faint sweetness of an air freshener. ID stolen from a gas station bathroom, because it was free. For a half second, it was the most comforting smell in the world. I started the engine fully, shifted into drive, and rolled forward. As I passed the sedan's position on my bed, my headlights swept across the road ahead. And for the first time I saw why the caller had said to, just hook it. The road in front of me wasn't empty. Something stood at the edge of my low beams about 20 yards ahead. Right where the fog started, at first, it looked like a man in a dark jacket. Then it moved. Not stepping, not walking. It unfolded upward, joints popping silently, like someone rising from a crouch they'd been holding too long. It was tall, too tall, and it was dragging something. A length of chain, maybe, or something that made the same sound a chain would make, but heavier, wetter. The scrape it made against the pavement sounded wrong, like it was scraping inside my teeth. My foot twitched toward the brake. Rule 7. If you hear chain dragging behind you while driving, do not brake. That rule said behind you. This was in front of me. My brain tried to bargain, to twist the rule to fit what I wanted. Then the thing at the edge of my headlights tilted its head, and I understood the rule wasn't about direction. It was about reaction. Braking meant acknowledging. Braking meant admitting it mattered. My hands gripped the steering wheel so hard my knuckles hurt. I kept rolling forward, slowly. The thing stood there, dead center of the lane, like it wanted me to commit. I didn't swerve. Swerving is a kind of acknowledgement too. Swerving says you see it, you fear it, you're reacting to it. Instead, I did the dumbest thing I've ever done in my life. I drove straight at it. At 5 miles an hour, a truck is not a weapon, it's a decision. The thing didn't move until my bumper was almost on it. Then it slid sideways into the fog without making a step sound, like it had been erased from the road rather than walking off it. My stomach rolled, I tasted bile. I passed the spot where it had been standing, and the fog swallowed my headlights, muffling the edges of the world. The road narrowed. Trees pressed closer. The guardrail vanished. I glanced at my phone. Still no service. I resisted the urge to call anyone anyway. And then I heard it. Chain dragging. Now it was behind me. Not outside. Inside. It sounded like the chain was dragging across the metal of my rollback bed. Right beneath the sedan. Scrape. 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 My foot flinched again. Rule 7. Said do not brake. Do not pull over. Do not check your mirrors. So I didn't. But my eyes flicked to the rearview mirror without permission. Just a reflex. Just a glance. I wish I could say I saw nothing. In the mirror, the sedan's glossy hood reflected my taillights like a dark lake. And in that reflection, for half a second, I saw movement inside the car. A shape in the back seat shifting, like it had been waiting for the road to start moving. Then the interior light snapped on again and flooded the back window with pale glow. I jerked my eyes forward immediately, heart punching my ribs. The road ahead bent left, but when I followed it, the bend didn't end. It just kept curving. Like someone had taken the road and wound it around itself. I saw the same dead oak on the right shoulder twice, then 3 times. I passed a mailbox with no house behind it. Then I passed it again, now on the left. My odometer ticked forward, then stuttered, then dropped by 2 miles like it had coughed. The mountains around me felt closer, as if the world was shrinking to keep me contained. And in the cab, with the chain scraping behind me and the 2 clean sedan riding silent on my bed, I realized something that made my throat close. The rules weren't warnings about what might happen. They were instructions for a route through something that wasn't a normal road anymore. Ed, through the fog, I saw a glow. A sign. A church sign. Letters lit from within. I couldn't read it yet, but I knew deep in my gut I was about to find out if Rule 8 was real. The glow sharpened as I crawled closer. The kind of soft amber you only get from old bulbs behind plastic letters. A church sign. Out here, churches are like Dollar Generals and gas stations. If you drive long enough, you'll hit one. Except this road wasn't behaving like long enough. Meant anything. The chain dragging behind me kept its slow scrape, perfectly timed. Like it was keeping pace with my breathing. Scrape, scrape, scrape. My eyes stayed glued to the lane lines, because the moment I looked in the mirror again, I knew I'd see something that would change the rules of my life. Some knowledge you don't recover from. The sign came into full view. Welcome home. My stomach dropped so hard it felt like my guts were trying to exit through my boots. Rule 8, if you pass a church with a lit sign that reads welcome home, you have missed your turn. Keep driving. Do not go back. The church sat a little off the road on a patch of cleared dirt. The building itself, nothing special, white siding, steep roof, a small steeple like a finger. The parking lot was empty, but the front doors were open, not wide, just enough to show a strip of darkness beyond. And I swear to you, the darkness inside that church looked thicker than night, like tar. Like the void behind a closed eye. My headlights swept across the open doorway, and for a second my light didn't reach the back wall. It just died in that black. Keep driving, I whispered. My voice sounded wrong in the cab, swallowed before it finished leaving my mouth. I passed the church without slowing, the moment my truck's rear wheels cleared the church driveway. The chain dragging sound stopped. Relief tried to rise in my chest. It didn't get far, because then something else started. A sound that had no business being in my cab. Breathing, not mine. A steady inhale-exhale coming from the back seat, right behind my headrest. Like someone was sitting there with their mouth close to my ear and trying not to laugh. Rule 6. Do not use the radio. If the radio turns on by itself, do not turn it off. Do not respond. Let it finish. My radio clicked on. The display lit up blue. Static hissed, then resolved into a voice. Not music. Not a DJ. A man speaking like he was reading a weather alert, clipped and official. County line is not a line, the voice said. It is a seam. My throat closed. I kept my hands on the wheel like the steering column was the only solid thing left in the world. The voice continued. You will want to look back. You will want to check your mirrors. That is how it learns your face. A hiss of static then. Through the noise, I heard my own name. Not my full name. The name my mother uses when she's disappointed. The name nobody in town calls me. The radio said it softly, like it was trying it on. I didn't answer. I didn't flinch. I didn't even swallow. I watched the road. The road straightened for the first time in what felt like an hour. Fog thinned. The trees pulled back a little, as if I'd been allowed to breathe again. And then I saw the county line sign. Green reflective metal, white letters. Welcome to county. I won't write the name. I won't say it out loud. Even now. Because I don't know what part of that night followed me home. And what part stayed up there in the holler. I just know the sign was real. And it was exactly where it should have been on that road. And that meant Rule 10 mattered. Rule 10, do not tow the car past the county line. My yard was 10 minutes past that sign. The nearest safe lot on my side of the line was nothing. Just woods and a couple of abandoned pull-offs where people dump mattresses and tires. I felt trapped, not by fog or monsters, but by logistics. The dumb, practical problem tow drivers always deal with. Where do you put a car when you can't take it where you're supposed to? The radio popped again. You are thinking of unhooking it, the voice said. I tasted metal. You are thinking of leaving it on the shoulder and telling yourself that is not the same as letting it touch the ground. Static. Rule 5 is about contact. Not compassion. My skin prickled. My hands tightened. And behind me in the back seat that breathing got closer. A slow inhale that sounded like someone smelling my hair. I didn't turn around. I spoke to myself instead, like Rule 1 said. Okay, I murmured. Okay, think. I needed a place before the county line where I could get it off the road, off my bed, without breaking Rule 5, and without taking it past the line. I needed a place to park. I needed my yard, but I couldn't. I needed help, but I couldn't call anyone. And then my headlights caught something on the right shoulder, a gravel access road, half hidden by brush. No sign, just 2 tire ruts leading down into a cleared patch. A pull-off. Not official. Not safe, but it was there. I slowed without braking hard, letting the truck roll down to a crawl. The chain scraping on my bed resumed, softer now, like it approved of my decision. Scrape, scrape. I turned onto the access road. The moment my front tires left the asphalt, the world shifted. I can't explain it better than that. Not. It felt like. Not, I imagined. Shifted. The fog didn't get thicker, it got closer. Like it had been waiting at a distance, and now it could lean in. The trees on either side of the access road looked taller, darker. The branches woven together overhead like a tunnel. My headlights illuminated bark and leaves, but it felt like the light was being absorbed rather than reflected. The pull-off opened into a small gravel clearing, and there were cars already there, not a few abandoned beaters. A lot, dozens, parked in loose rows like someone's private impound lot. All kinds SUVs, sedans, trucks. Even a motorcycle tipped over on its side, like it had been dropped in a hurry. My chest tightened. I recognized one of them. A white Jeep with a missing rear window and a sticker on the bumper that said Mama Tried. I towed that Jeep last spring from a creek bed. The owner never came to pay. It had sat in my lot for a month, until it vanished one night, gate lock cut clean. No tracks, no noise. Like it had been taken by a professional crew. ID filed a report. The sheriff had shrugged, and now here it was, sitting in this clearing like it had never left. I rolled forward slowly, the gravel crunching under my tires, the first real, normal sound ID heard in too long. The sedan on my bed felt heavier. My truck suspension groaned. The backseat breathing stopped. Silence pressed in. Then my headlights swept across the far end of the clearing and landed on a structure I hadn't noticed at first. A little shed, more like a guard shack, really, plywood walls. A single window, a light on inside, and a man standing in front of it. He was old, maybe 60, with a reflective vest over a flannel shirt and a face that looked like it had been carved out of tired decisions. He held the flashlight pointed down, not at me, like he didn't want to blind himself or announce anything. As I rolled closer, he raised his other hand, not waving me down, not flagging me, just holding up his palm like a stop sign. I stopped. I didn't brake hard, I just let the truck settle. The man approached my driver's side window slowly, eyes never leaving the sedan on my bed. He leaned in. His voice was low, rough, and very human. "Don't talk about it," he said. "Don't ask what it is. Don't tell me how you got it." My mouth opened, but no sound came out. He swallowed like he was forcing something down. "You looked at the plate, didn't you?" I didn't answer. I didn't want to, but my face must have done something. The man's eyes tightened, pained. "Yeah," he muttered. "Yeah, you did." He stepped back and shined his flashlight across the sedan's front end, careful not to hit the plate. Then he looked back at me. "You got a rule list?" he asked. I hesitated. He exhaled through his nose like my hesitation was answer enough. "Doesn't matter, same story every time." He glanced toward the trees like he expected them to lean closer if he spoke too loud. "Listen to me, this ain't your yard. This is a holding pen. We don't keep him here long." "Who are you?" I finally managed. His jaw clenched. "Someone who made it past the county line once," he said, "and paid for it." He pointed at the sedan. "Whatever is in that car doesn't like lines, doesn't like borders, doesn't like being told where it can't go." He walked to the back of my truck, peered at my chains, then nodded once. "You chained it right. That helps." "Helps what?" My voice cracked. He didn't answer directly. He leaned toward my window again. "You've got two choices," he said. "You leave it here, and it'll be gone before dawn, and you'll spend the rest of your life wondering which one of those missing people posters was your fault." He paused. "Or you finish the tow the right way." My stomach sank. "The right way," I repeated. He nodded. "There is a drop," he said. "A place. Not on maps. Not on GPS. You take it there and you don't cross the county line with it. You do it before daylight or it gets bold." I stared at him. That was insane. But nothing about the night was normal anymore, and this man, this very tired man, was standing in a clearing full of cars that should have been scattered across 3 counties and 2 states. "What's the drop?" I asked. The man looked at my phone mount on the dash. "Then at me, you ain't got service, do you?" he said. I shook my head. He reached into his vest pocket and pulled out a folded paper map, the old kind. Creased and greasy at the edges. He slid it through my cracked window. "Follow this," he said. "And when you see the second church brick, no steeple, you do not pass it. You turn onto the gravel road beside the cemetery." He hesitated, like he hated the next part. "And whatever you do, when it starts talking to you like it knows you, don't answer it. Not even to say no, especially not to say no." My throat tightened. I glanced toward the sedan on my bed. The interior light flickered once, like a wink. The old man stepped back. "Go," he said. "Right now, before it realizes you found help." As I shifted into drive, my radio crackled again, just a soft pop. Then silence, and from the back seat, behind my headrest, I felt something lean close enough that the hair on my neck lifted. A whisper so soft, it could have been my own thought. "Home." I didn't respond. I drove. The access road spat me back onto the asphalt, like it was glad to be rid of me. The moment my tires hit the main road again, The fog thinned just enough that I could see the tree line on both sides. Normal darkness. Normal distance. Normal shape. Not safe. Just familiar. I kept the map on my lap, flattened with one hand when I could spare it. Eyes flicking between the road and the faded lines and handwritten marks. Someone had added in pen. No GPS. No service. Just a paper promise from a man who looked like he'd been living on borrowed time. The sedan rode behind me on the bed without a sound. No chain scrape. No interior light. That was worse. When something stops making noise, it's either gone or it's listening. I drove by the county line sign again, but this time it was on my left instead of my right. Like the road had looped me around without admitting it. I didn't try to make sense of that. I didn't give my brain the luxury of questions. The map's route avoided the sign anyway. A left turn onto a narrower road, then a right at a rusted gate, then stay on gravel until you see brick church. I took the left. The road dropped into a hollow, and the air got colder again. That freezer cold that made the inside of my nose sting. My headlights picked out wet leaves and slick blacktop. I passed a mailbox that had no numbers, just a strip of tape where something used to be. Then I passed another mailbox. Same shape. Same tape. Same exact dent on the side. I bit down hard on the inside of my cheek. Not again. The sedan's weight felt heavier on my truck, like the suspension had sunk a fraction lower. I could feel every bump more sharply through the steering wheel. I kept going. The map said the next landmark was a bridge. I saw it ahead, a narrow single-lane bridge, with a faded yellow sign that read one vehicle at a time. That sign made me laugh, once, sharp and humorless, like the bridge had any say in what was happening tonight. I rolled onto the bridge and the world changed mid-span. It wasn't a dramatic shift. No flash of light. No roar of thunder. Just a sense that the air on the other side of the bridge was different. Heavier, like walking into a room where someone's been arguing. My headlights hit the far end of the bridge and picked out something hanging from the guardrail. A chain. A length of chain draped over the metal, like it had been placed there. Not rusty. Not old. Fresh steel catching the light. It moved slightly, swaying. Not from wind. There wasn't any. From something touching it, my throat tightened. I kept my speed steady, didn't brake, didn't accelerate. Didn't give the night any sign that I was afraid. As my front tires cleared the bridge, the chain slid off the guardrail and dropped onto the asphalt with a loud metallic slap. Behind me, on the bed, something answered with a soft scrape. One scrape, like a knuckle tapping wood from inside a coffin. The radio clicked on, blue display. Static. I didn't touch it. Rule 6. The static cleared into a voice so familiar my hands almost slipped off the wheel. My father's voice, not a recording, not a memory, not the way grief makes you replay old words. This was new alive. "Hey," the radio said, warmly. "You still out working?" My chest tightened so hard it hurt. My dad had been dead for 3 years. Heart attack at 57. Dropped in the kitchen reaching for a coffee mug. I didn't answer. The voice chuckled, like it expected stubbornness. "Come on," it said. "Don't be like that. I'm just checking on you." I stared at the road so hard my eyes started to water. The truck hit a pothole and the sedan shifted slightly on the bed. My chains groaned under the load. "Listen." The voice continued. "You've got yourself in something you don't understand. Let me help you." My jaw trembled. The voice sounded so right. The cadence. The little pauses. The sigh before a sentence. Something inside me, something old and desperate, wanted to believe it. Then I remembered what the old man had said. When it starts talking like it knows you, don't answer it. Not even to say no, especially not to say no. The radio hissed. "You think Emmett," my father's voice said. Softer now, hurt. "You think him some kind of trick." The way he said. Trick was exactly the way my dad used to say it when I was a kid lying about sneaking cookies. My vision blurred. I didn't answer. The voice changed. It dropped the warmth like a mask sliding off. "Fine," it said. "We can do it the hard way." The radio went silent, and in that silence I heard breathing again in the back seat. Not steady now. Excited. Quick little inhales like someone trying not to giggle. I kept driving until the map told me to turn right at a rusted gate. The gate was there, but it wasn't across a driveway. It was across the road. 2 iron posts, a sagging gate chain shut, like somebody had decided nobody should pass. The road continued beyond it, disappearing into trees. My headlights hit the chain around the gate and reflected. The chain was new steel, same as the one on the bridge, and hanging from the chain was a small sign, hand-painted. Letters thick and uneven. Welcome home. My stomach flipped. Rule 8 again. It wasn't a church sign this time. It was a warning dressed like hospitality. My hands shook on the wheel. I looked down at the map. The map didn't say anything about a gate. It said turn right at the gate. But this wasn't something you turned at. This was something you either stopped for or crashed through. I heard a soft click behind me, like a seatbelt buckle. Then a sound I hadn't heard yet tonight, and I hated how human it was. A throat clearing right behind my head. I didn't turn. My eyes flicked to the rearview mirror despite myself. Just for a fraction, the mirror showed the back seat. Empty, but the headrest looked slightly indented. Like someone had just leaned forward, and then sat back again. I forced my eyes forward. My mouth was dry enough to crack. I spoke to myself because that was allowed. Not the gate, I whispered. Not that way. The map had another route, a little detour line drawn in pen, looping around the gate like someone had anticipated this. I took the detour, a narrow gravel path that branched off before the gate, half hidden by brush. The kind of road you'd only notice if you already knew it was there. My tires crunched onto the gravel and the world relaxed a fraction, like ID made the right choice. Not safe, but right. The gravel road wound through woods so dense my headlights couldn't find anything beyond the first row of trees. The branches overhead knit together like ribs. Then the path opened into a small valley, and I saw it. A brick church, no steeple, just like the old man had said. The building sat low and squat, brick darkened by years of rain. The windows were narrow and tall, stained glass dulled with grime. The parking lot was empty, but the church door was open again, just a crack. The map said, do not pass it. Turn onto the gravel road beside the cemetery. The cemetery was there too, a small fenced plot with crooked stones, some so old the names had worn away. The gravel road beside it was barely more than a trail, but it existed. I slowed, and the sedan's interior light snapped on, bright this time, flooding the back window with white glow like a flare. I kept my eyes forward. I turned onto the cemetery road. The moment my truck's tires crossed onto that narrow path, every light in my cab flickered. Dashboard, radio, dome light, even my phone screen blinked awake for a second, showing no service, then dying again. And through it all, the sedan behind me still on my bed made a sound that wasn't a scrape or a click, a soft, wet laugh. My skin went ice cold. The cemetery stones passed on my left, leaning like they were trying to read my plates. Don't look at the plates. Don't say it out loud. The path dipped sharply, and my rollback bed bounced. Chains clanked. The sedan shifted. For the first time, I felt it pull backward slightly, like it wanted to slide off the bed. Rule 5. Do not let it touch the ground again. My hands tightened. I eased the throttle. Careful, keeping the load stable. Ahead. The trail ended at a clearing with a single structure that didn't fit. A concrete ramp leading down into darkness. A sealed mine entrance, half collapsed, reinforced with thick beams and a steel door that looked newer than everything around it. In front of the door, lantern light flickered. Not electric, real flame. And standing in that light were 2 people in reflective vests, like the old man's. One held a clipboard. The other held a shotgun, like it was just another tool. They didn't wave. They didn't smile. They just watched me approach like they had been expecting me all night. The man with the clipboard stepped forward. He glanced at my truck, then at the sedan, careful not to look at the plate. Drop off, he asked. My mouth opened. No sound came, he sighed, impatient. Don't talk, he said. Just nod. I nodded. He marked something on his clipboard. Good, he said. Now listen carefully. You're going to back it onto the ramp, You're going to unhook it. You're going to get back in your truck and drive away without looking back. His eyes sharpened. And if you hear it call your name, you do not answer. If you answer, we can't help you. The shotgun guy shifted his stance, like he was ready for something to come out of the sedan the moment it touched ground. The clipboard man pointed toward the ramp. Back up, he said. Slow. I put the truck in reverse, as my rollback bed lined up with the ramp. The sedan's interior light flashed once more, and a voice came from the radio. Not my father's this time. A child's voice. Soft, broken. Please, it said. Don't leave me in here. My hands shook so badly the steering wheel vibrated. The clipboard man's expression didn't change. Had heard it before. I backed onto the ramp. The darkness of the mine entrance yawned open like a mouth waiting to be fed. And the sedan on my bed clean, silent. Too Perfect shifted forward an inch, as if it was eager to go home. Backing a rollback is usually the easy part. You line it up, you feather the throttle. You watch your mirrors. You take it slow because slow is faster than fixing stupid mistakes. But that ramp into the mine felt like backing toward a cliff that didn't end. The lanterns threw a trembling light across wet gravel and old concrete. The mouth of the mine swallowed the glow a few feet in, leaving nothing but black. The clipboard man stayed to my left where I could see him in my side mirror. Shotgun guy stood to my right, feet planted, the barrel angled down but ready. Neither of them looked at the sedan's plate. Neither of them looked into the windows. They didn't treat the car like a car. They treated it like a container. I eased back until the bed was fully on the ramp, and the tires of the sedan were lined up with the lip. The truck settled, suspension groaning. The sedan's interior light was off now. The radio was quiet. Even the backseat breathing had stopped. It felt like everything was waiting for the same moment. The clipboard man raised 2 fingers. Bed down, he said. I took a breath and hit the hydraulics. The rollback tilted. The bed slid back. Metal groaned and clanked, loud against the stillness. The sedan shifted with gravity, settling toward the mine like it wanted to slide on its own. Rule 5 echoed in my head, as if someone had written it on the inside of my skull. Do not let it touch the ground again until you reach your yard. I wasn't at my yard, but I wasn't making this decision anymore. The decision had been made the second I took that call, the second I looked at the plate, the second the road stopped behaving like a road. The clipboard man saw the panic in my face and gave me a small, sharp shake of his head. Like, don't start thinking now. Just do what you're told. He stepped closer and spoke without raising his voice. This is still the job, he said. This is where it goes. My mouth was too dry to form words, but my throat still tried. That rule, he cut me off. That list was written by somebody who didn't have an option, he said. You do, right now. Finish it. Shotgun guy shifted again. Glancing toward the mine entrance like he could feel something leaning forward in the darkness. Listening. The sedan's interior light snapped on. Bright. Not dim like before. Not flickering. Bright like someone had turned on the ceiling fixture in the room. A pale white glow filled the back window. I kept my eyes on the bed controls. I did not look inside. Then the child's voice came again this time, not from the radio. From the sedan. From inside the car, mister, it said, small and trembling. Mister, please, I can't breathe. My hand slipped on the lever. I caught myself and forced my fingers to grip again. The clipboard man's expression stayed flat. His eyes were hard. Not cruel hard like someone who'd learned the difference between mercy and liability. Don't, he said quietly. That's not a kid. The child sobbed once, wet and real sounding. I'm gonna be good, it whispered. I promise. I felt my eyes sting. My mind flashed to every missing kid poster at every gas station bulletin board. Every candlelight vigil that made the news for 2 days, and then vanished under the next tragedy. Shotgun guy raised the barrel slightly, not at me at the sedan. Keep going, he said through his teeth. The sedan shifted forward on the bed. A slow inching slide like it was tired of waiting. Chains creaked, the winch line, still attached, pulled taut. The child's voice changed. It stopped trembling. It steadied, like it had found the right tone. Open it, it said. Just open it and it'll show you where they keep the money. My heart lurched. The promise landed perfectly on the part of my brain that wanted out of this whole mess. The part that wanted to believe there was a deal to make. The clipboard man swore under his breath. Like hearing that line was a bad sign, he stepped right up to my window, close enough that I could smell his breath coffee and wintergreen. "Listen," he said, voice sharp. "It learns what you want. It does not give it. Do not bargain with it." The sedan's interior light went out. The child's voice became my father's again, calm and disappointed. "You always were stubborn," it said from inside the car. "You always thought you knew better." The word stubborn hit me like a punch. My dad used to call me that when I'd refuse help, when I'd insist on doing things the hard way. The voice sighed. "Just look at me," it said, "just for a second." My throat tightened, behind my eyes. Something tried to replay the plate letters again, that almost word that made my head ache. My tongue tingled like it wanted to say it out loud. I bit down hard, tasted blood. "No," I whispered before I could stop myself. The word left my mouth like a betrayal. The clipboard man's face tightened. Shotgun guy swore, and inside the mine entrance, something answered. A deep hollow sound like a huge breath being drawn through stone. The lantern flames leaned toward the darkness. The sedan on my bed lurched forward, hard enough that my chain snapped taut with a metallic bang. The truck rocked. The bed shuddered. The voice inside the sedan laughed low and wet, and the radio in my cab turned on by itself again. Blue display glowing, static. Then a chorus of voices, layered and overlapping. Too many to count. People begging. People bargaining, people promising anything. I felt my stomach drop as I realized something awful. Those weren't random. They were recordings of conversations, captured. Like trophies, the clipboard man slapped the side of my door hard. "Unhook it," he barked. My brain lagged. My hand shook. But my body moved. I threw the truck in park and stumbled out of the cab into the cold night air. The moment my boots hit the ramp, the chain drag sound started again, this time from inside the mine. As if something down there was pulling its own anchor toward the surface. Scrape, 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 scrape. Shotgun guy moved closer, standing between me and the sedan, like he could physically block whatever was in it. He didn't point the gun at me. He never looked away from the car. The clipboard man came around the back of the truck and shoved a pair of bolt cutters into my hands. "Cut the winch line," he said. "What?" My voice cracked. "Cut it," he repeated. "Do not unclip it." My eyes flicked to the hook point, then to the thick steel cable. That cable was expensive. It was my livelihood. But I understood. Unclipping meant touching, lingering, giving the thing time. Cutting meant severing. I raised the bolt cutters with shaking arms, placed the jaws on the cable, and squeezed. The steel strands fought back like tendon. I squeezed again. The cable snapped with a sharp metallic twang that made my ears ring. The sudden release sent the sedan sliding forward. The chains held for half a second. Then one binder handle popped open by itself, just flipped. Clean, like an invisible hand had done it. The sedan rolled. Shotgun guy fired. One blast. The sound cracked through the valley and echoed back from the mine entrance. The pellets hit the sedan's rear window and did nothing. No spiderweb, no shatter. The glass didn't even flinch. The sedan kept rolling. The clipboard man grabbed my shoulder and yanked me backward. "Get in your truck," he said. I stumbled, eyes locked on the sedan as it rolled down the bed and onto the ramp. For the first time, the tires touched ground. The moment they did, the air changed. The cold became alive. The lantern flames dimmed like someone had pinched them, and the sedan's interior light came on one last time, so bright it turned the back window into a white screen. A shape pressed against it. Not a face, not hands. A bulge, enormous, pushing outward like something inside was trying to wear the glass. The child's voice screamed out, begging now, but furious. "You said no." The sedan rolled into the mine entrance. The darkness swallowed it, headlights and all, like the mine was an open throat. For a second I expected to hear it crash. Metal on stone. Tires squealing instead. I heard the softest sound of all. A door closing gently. Then silence. Absolute. The clipboard man shoved me back toward my cab. I climbed in like my legs belonged to someone else. My hands fumbled the gear shift. "Drive," he said through the open window, voice low again. "Don't look back. Don't stop until you hit a main road. If you see Welcome Home again, keep going." "What was it?" I asked before I could stop myself. He looked at me like he was tired of the same question. "A car that shouldn't exist," he said, "and something that does." Then he stepped away. Shotgun guy lowered his weapon, still staring into the mine like he expected the sedan to come rocketing back out. I put the truck in drive and rolled forward. As I left the clearing, I did the one thing I'd been warned not to do. I glanced in the mirror. The mine entrance was just a black rectangle. The lanterns flickered like nothing had happened. But parked beside the ramp, where my truck had been, was a car I hadn't seen before. A sedan immaculate, too clean, sitting dead center as if placed there. And even from a distance, I could see the plate was blank until my headlights hit it at just the right angle. Then letters appeared, dark on reflective metal, spelling something my brain tried to read. Pain shot behind my eyes so hard I nearly swerved. I jerked my gaze forward, heart hammering. The road ahead was suddenly normal again. Curves behaved. Mile markers made sense. My phone buzzed as service returned like it had never left. A text popped up from the unknown number. Paid a second later, another message. "Next time, don't say number." I drove home on autopilot and parked my truck in my lot under the buzzing security light. The winch line dangled uselessly, frayed ends like exposed nerve. I didn't sleep. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw the church sign glowing "Welcome Home." And every time I tried not to, my mind replayed the plate letters, almost forming a word. By morning, I had done something I never thought I'd do. I wrote my own envelope, thick paper, black ink to the next driver, and inside I wrote rules as plainly as I could. The way you write instructions for someone you'll never meet but still want to save. Because if there is one thing I'm sure of now, it's this: that wasn't the only car. It wasn't even the first, and it won't be the last, if you're still listening. Do me a favor, hit like and subscribe if you want more stories from these roads, because I've got plenty, and they don't get easier to tell. And I've gotta ask, if you'd been in my seat, what would you have done when it started talking in your father's voice? Would you have stayed silent, or would you have answered it?